I've been on the hunt for the perfect remote. You know, the one remote to rule them all? I might have found it, the Sofabaton X2. But perfect is a super high bar to reach, and I know you guys have some concerns because you let me know in this short that I made about this recently, and we're gonna address all of them. What's crazy though is that this remote made this smart home dashboard completely obsolete. I don't need this anymore because this remote controls everything. It's wild. I think you guys are gonna really like it. The Sofabaton X2 is the new upgrade to the X1S, which I've been using for about a year now and it's been great. But it is missing a few key features, like there's no touchscreen, there's not an IR blaster on the remote, it doesn't have a wireless charging dock, and it doesn't connect well with my smart home. And I mentioned all of this when I reviewed it about a year ago. But the great news is all of those have been fixed with the X2 remote. And it integrates extremely well with my smart home, and I can't wait to show you guys. But first, let's talk about the wireless charging dock. This is the thing I felt like was missing the most from the X1S. And when you don't have a wireless charging dock, the remote can just get thrown wherever when it's not being used, or you might not know where it's charging and someone could put it in a weird spot. Well, the wireless charging dock solves all of that. It's always topped up on battery when you're ready to use it. And if you have the one remote to rule them all, you don't want to lose it. But my one complaint is when you put the remote back on the charging dock, the little charging symbol is so tiny up in the corner, it's hard to see unless you're looking extremely close. So I would love to see a big graphic saying, hey, it's charging, it's on the dock correctly. I'm sure they could fix that with an update. Another big update they made on the X2 is that it's now a touchscreen and the back arrow is on the bottom instead of the top of the remote. And it's just so much more intuitive to use a touchscreen instead of that little scroll wheel. A big benefit of having it be a touchscreen is that you have access to the numbers. So if you need to use the numbers for a remote, you can use it on the touchscreen, which is pretty nice. Now, I saw someone saying that they wish the numbers were physical buttons instead of digital ones on the screen. If you are jumping between a couple different channels often and you want to use the physical buttons, you can reprogram these as macro commands to jump between your favorite channels. So that could be a good option for you if you don't like using the digital screen buttons to jump between channels. But I love the touchscreen. It's so much easier for my family to use. Okay, those are more of nice to have features. The thing that I saw people complain the most about the X1S was lack of IR on the remote. Well, the X2 has an IR blaster on the remote now. And I'll explain how it works because it's a little bit different than it was before. So when you're setting up a device and you want to have it powered on or off with an IR blaster, well, you can choose in the Sofabaton app to use the IR blaster on the remote, or there's an IR blaster on the hub that it can use, or there's IR extenders that plug into the hub that come with it that you can attach in front of the amplifier or whatever you're using. But then there's also a fourth option. There's an IR extender that you can put in the other side of the room or a different room. And when you're using the hub, it will tell this to blast to, like, say you have like a server room or something, like a server rack, it could tell those devices to turn on and off as well. So you can choose one or multiple of those options when you're turning a device on or off. So you're basically completely covered now. You shouldn't run into any issues between all those options if you need to turn an IR device on or off. Now, the biggest difference that you'll notice if you're coming from the X1S over to the X2 is the higher build quality. It's made out of metal now, so it kind of has some heft to it, and it feels like a premium phone. It doesn't feel like a piece of plastic like the X1S. And there's some extra buttons that you can program to whatever you want. But I'm just a huge fan of this redesign. It still feels familiar if you're coming from a previous Sofabaton remote, but I love all the changes they made. All right, when it comes to setting up the X2 remote, this is where things get a little rocky. And it started off on a bad foot when I went to set up the pre-production version of one of these, and I was updating the firmware. It got stuck, and I tried to reset it, and I just completely bricked the remote. Yeah, it just stopped working. And so they had to send me another one. This was not a pre-production. This was like the one that they're selling now, and it updated just fine. So if you see any bad reviews out there saying the firmware didn't update, it's probably a pre-production one, so just probably ignore that. But when I went to set up the remote, the X2, I saw that I could back up the X1S remote. And so I thought, hey, maybe if I just back up that, I could just import everything over to the X2 remote. So I tried it and
You shall not pass!
I don't think they're compatible with each other. So that was a bit of a bummer. So I had to reset up all the devices on the X2. And it was kind of difficult to remember how I set everything up a year ago, like my projector. Couldn't remember if it was IR or Bluetooth. But now with the X2 remote and the Sofabaton app, it will tell you how the device is set up. If it uses Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, IR, or whatever, that will make it a lot easier going forward, but still kind of a pain that they don't have that for the X1S. And setting up all the devices was still pretty similar to the way it was about a year ago. The Xbox was actually easier. I had to go through some hoops before, but this time I just added it and it worked right out of the box. The Denon receiver, it imported all the buttons for the remote for the Denon receiver, but nothing worked. So I had to reprogram the IR commands for this. So that was a little bit of a pain, but besides that, it really wasn't too bad. And I'm not going to get into how it all works, like setting everything up. I explained that in my previous Sofabaton review that you can go check out. But you basically set up your on-off commands for each device, and that way you can set up activities. And activities is how you use this remote. You select activities after you create one, and instead of using the scroll wheel to select it, you use the touchscreen, slide it over, and that will turn on the activity. When you do that, it will turn on all the devices that need to be turned on, and then you can just use the remote like you normally would. And if you need to switch to, say, like watching the Apple TV over to the Xbox, you just turn on the Xbox activity that I created, and it will shut down the Apple TV, turn on the Xbox. Pretty seamless going back and forth. And then when you're ready to stop watching and turn everything off, you just press the off button up there at the top and it will shut everything down. So it's really easy for the family to use. So yeah, the setup, it can be a little bit better, but the smart home capabilities is where the X2 really shines. Now, just like the X1S, if you're using Amazon or Google, you can have it turn on or off activities using the remote, but now you can use the remote to control your smart home and have the smart home control the remote a lot better. And if you're using Home Assistant, Sofabaton has all the instructions on there on how to set this up. It takes a few minutes to go through everything, but once you have it all set up, it's really easy to have commands from the remote go to your smart home. So the way it works is that you'll create a device in the Sofabaton app, a Wi-Fi device for Home Assistant, and then you'll create virtual buttons for that device that will trigger automation. So say I want to press the button on the remote to turn off all the lights in the house. What I would do is create a button in the Sofabaton app, and then it will give me the little MQTT codes, and I'll create an automation using those codes, and then I can give it any actions I want to turn off the lights, turn them on, or whatever I want to do. And then I just have to set this button on the physical remote to that virtual button to control it. And then once you press it, it will trigger that virtual button, send a command to Home Assistant, and run the automation. Once you do it once or twice, it's not too bad. My main issue with the buttons to control the smart home is that they're only set up for a specific activity. So if you want to have them working on another activity, you have to program each button for that other activity as well. So it's kind of a pain. I wish you could just set it for all the activities, but I really love having buttons control my smart home on the remote. It's replaced that smart home dashboard. I can control the lights, the fan, everything that I want to, and it's a lot more convenient than just relying purely on automations. Like for example, I had the lights in the room next to us automatically turn off once we start watching something, but we had guests over one day and they were turning off on them. It was really annoying. So it can be much more convenient to press a button on the remote to control your smart home than relying purely on automations. All right, let's wrap up this video with some of the concerns that you guys shared in the comments on the short that I made about this remote. Someone said, if you're running Home Assistant, your smartphone does all this and more. Best of all, Home Assistant is free. That's true. You can do a lot of this if you have an IR blaster and, Home Assistant connects to everything, but using a remote for your family is very convenient. It's so family friendly for someone to just pick up the remote, press a button, everything turns on. They have a physical remote to control stuff. It's a lot easier than using an app on your phone. So for some people, they could probably just get away with Home Assistant, I guess, but the remote has been great for a family. Another comment, Remote 3 unfold circle is better. Here we go. I'm sure there's some comments down there about the Remote 3 unfolded circle. So I saw a Reddit post about this recently, about some bad experiences people had with the Remote 3. And the Remote 3 company reached out and I shared that Reddit post with them saying, hey, are you guys addressing some of these concerns? And if so, I would be happy to, try it out or anything. They never got back to me. So I don't know. It is a little bit more expensive than the Sofabaton X2. And that was another concern that people brought up was the price. I think it's around $360 or like on sale for $330. Someone commented, I don't know how to pronounce their Lord Carno 8599. They were saying the Harmony Elite remote was about the same price, and that came out over 10 years ago. So the fact that it's about the same price as that, can do just as much, if not more, than the Harmony Elite remote, shows that this isn't extremely overpriced. This is just a premium home entertainment remote that can control everything. So if that's something that you need, like you have a home theater system or a bunch of devices that you need to control, this might be the remote for you. It might not be. But yeah, we really like the X2. It improves so much on the X1S with the touchscreen, the charging dock, the IR blaster on it, and how it integrates in my smart home. It's really changed how we control things here in our theater room. And I wouldn't say it's perfect. Setting it up and everything was a little bit rough. But after everything's set up, it checks all the boxes that I want in a smart home remote. Check it out in the link below, and thanks for watching.
Hey, Reed, are you over there? I need help with the kids. Reed, are you in here?
My precious.